but or making an ordinary person bleed. But of course it's here because the mental consciousness is the support, and the body is supported by the mental consciousness. Therefore they say, no, it's different. It's kind of like here the physical eye and the eye consciousness. If the physical eye is harmed, the eye consciousness no longer works properly. It's the same logic, right? It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so that's their response to that. Yeah, they can explain it. It's just a debate, but they don't have a harder time explaining this from the point of view of their school, whereas, yeah, it's not a big deal, but it's just a debate that came up and is mentioned here. So how do they account for that kind of heavy negativity? Okay. Now, what I'm more interested, what's more important here is now the meaning or the nature of the three jewels according to the Mahayana tenets. So that's what we're interested in. Chitta Mantra, and then Madhyamika, which can be subdivided into two. As I said, the difference between the two, it's very beautiful. The Chitta Mantra takes us away from this extreme, there's all these external things there, and our mind perceives it the way it exists. Just think, you're introduced to the system, there's nothing out there. We're all dreaming, right? If you really wrap your mind around it, that's huge. Isn't it? For the first time, we no longer believe in the appearances. We believe it's all in the mind. So the Chitta Mantra school, when you learn about those, puts a lot of emphasis on the mind. It's because of imprints that are left on the mind that we perceive things. And it's a beautiful school because, of course, it's very effective. If you think, oh, the person I don't like is just in my mind, it's much harder to be angry. It's much harder to be angry with someone realizing you're just dreaming about them, right? Realizing they don't exist that way. Let's say you dream at night, you have great attachment for this person, and in the morning you wake up and you realize there is no person. What happens to your attachment? Gone. So this can be effective, although it's not the highest view, but none of the things around you take seriously. It's quite beautiful, isn't it? I really like the Chitta Mantra school. But of course, can't stay there, because to say there's nothing out there and there's only mind, that's too extreme. But it's a nice way of getting the mind ready towards being more focused on the mind. The mind creates our reality. But then we move away from that school, and then the Madhyamika school says, yes, there are things out there. They do actually allow for that. There is one branch of the Madhyamika school that is still like the Chitta Mantra, that still holds on to no external existence, but the kind of more mainstream assertion is that they say, yes, there are external phenomena. And they find a way that is, they kind of move away from the Chitta Mantra. They say also the mind doesn't exist as truly as the Chitta Mantra makes it appear. And that they're external objects, and the mind doesn't exist truly, and there's still a dependence of external objects on the mind. They say external objects only exist because there is mind. So without a mind, you couldn't have external objects, but these objects are still external. So maybe this view in itself is comparable to modern physics when they say blue depends on something out there, but still the experience of blue needs a mind. So it's light waves, okay? Light waves over there, but there's still a unique experience of the color blue, as one example. So that's what they say. So there is an external object, okay? The Madhyamika Svatantrika. So the Madhyamika autonomy, Madhyamika, or the middle way autonomy school, as they're called. They move away from there's only mind, and these external objects don't exist. They move away from that. They say there are external objects, but they're still dependent on the mind. Okay? They're still dependent on appearing to the mind. But there must be something there. There must be something objectively there, something from the side of the object, otherwise we couldn't have the appearance of those objects. You see, it moves away from the Vaibhashika and the Sautantrika that say everything is out there and we just perceive it that way. Okay? Moved away from that school. But it's also moved away from the Chitta Matra, or the mind only, which says there's only mind. Moved away from that, because they say, yes, they're external objects. So they say they're external objects, therefore they're different from the Chitta Matra, the mind only school. But they're also different from the two lower schools, because they say phenomena depend on the mind. If you didn't have a mind, you couldn't have blue, for instance. But they're also different from the higher school, which says from the side of the object, there's nothing. Nothing exists from the side of the object. No, they say, yeah, there's something there. Otherwise, you couldn't have the appearance of blue. The Prasangika are the most radical. They say there's nothing from the side of the object. Nothing can be found. Right? If you look for the object, if you look for something there, you won't find light waves, you won't find anything. It all exists relative, it all exists independent on the mind. There's nothing that can exist independently of the mind. That's the most radical one.
They do say there's a basis, though. They do call it a basis, though. Like the basis.
Well, there's the basis for imputation, but even that basis can't be found. There's a conventional basis, there's a conventional relative basis based on which you label, but even that basis doesn't exist, cannot be found. It's also just labeled. Okay? Now, that was really a crash course on the different philosophies, but might as well mention it. So it makes total sense. If you explain it in that order, it makes sense how you get from here to there. Okay?
Next year, begin of a new course of the 4 days, please.
What?
Or next year, to begin a new course of the 4 days.
We did already one. But we can do it again. Okay. Anyway, now we go to the higher school here, and here, what is the nature or the meaning of the Buddha jewel? Here is a perfected source of refuge that is endowed with the 8 qualities, such as the quality of the unconditioned and so forth. So here now a definition is given to Buddha jewel, that which we take refuge in. So this is really the view that is accepted. And here it talks about 8 qualities that a Buddha has, and this is according to Maitreya's Uttara Tantra, although we're still following the explanation of, mainly follow the ornament for clear realizations, but it doesn't give that extensive explanation. Here we're referring to, with regard to this topic only, to the Uttara Tantra. So it mentions 8 qualities.
Which belongs to the Chitta Matra.
Chitta Matra, Uttara Tantra is actually Madhyamika. It's a Madhyamika. It talks about emptiness according to the Madhyamika. Anyway, so there's this text called Uttara Tantra, and this explanation here is generally accepted, both in the Chitta Matra and Madhyamika, although the Uttara Tantra, strictly speaking, is a Madhyamika text. It's not a Chitta Matra text. No. Not that I know. No. Okay. So the Buddha himself, it says, is endowed with the unconditioned, the spontaneously accomplished, and with that which is not realized by other conditions. He possesses knowledge, love, and ability, and he possesses the twofold benefit. Okay. So, just that I haven't lost you for now, we've heard in the very beginning of this of the very beginning, we talked about the Lambrim Chemo. And in the Namim Chemo, there is an explanation given of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but mainly from the causal point of view. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Why is there Buddha? Why is there Dharma? Why is there Sangha? And the kind of qualities in general, not that hard to understand. Then we started talking about the general meaning, in which now the reason for Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is given from the point of view of the result. The 3 types of practitioners: bodhisattvas, hearers, solitary realizers. That part is clear. And then we talked about what are Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? What are they actually, what do they refer to? More specifically, in terms of their definition, not just their general qualities, not just why there are 3 of them. So this explanation was first given from the lower schools that say it's just mind. Objects of refuge are really just minds of Aryas and of Buddhas, as well as Nirvana. That's object of refuge. Here we now moved on to the two higher schools, which don't say that the Buddha jewel is only the mind of a Buddha. It means the whole person. But then it needs to explain what are the qualities that a Buddha has that no one else has. And therefore being the definition of the Buddha we take refuge in. So 8 qualities. The first is the quality of the unconditioned nature, or the unconditioned nature body. Body is the kaya, it's just another word for kaya, so it's called the svabhava kaya. It's already very difficult. It is so bizarre, like it's really difficult to understand that here one of the qualities of the Buddha is the lack of inherent existence of his mental consciousness. Now, when we think of a quality, we usually think of a quality that someone developed. Did the Buddha develop the quality of his own emptiness? No, it's a natural quality. But the emptiness of the Buddha's mind is a very specific emptiness. It's the emptiness of a special mind. Okay? So, you heard me mention before that Buddha nature, okay, when we say Buddha nature, I talked about Buddha nature is like shakshuka. It's like saying you have all the ingredients, like when it says on the menu we have shakshuka, which means we have all the ingredients to make you shakshuka. So similarly here, when you say Buddha nature, it's saying we have all the ingredients to become a Buddha. It's all right there. All you need to do is remove what's extra. So in general, when we say we have Buddha nature, if I ask you, point out my Buddha nature, you would say, it's my mental consciousness. That is my Buddha nature. Because that mental consciousness will slowly remove all that is extra. It itself will remove what is extra and become the enlightened mind of a Buddha. And the same is true for your mental consciousness. It's that stream of consciousness, okay, which eventually, when you understand reality as it is, that understanding in your mind will remove whatever is extra in your mind, and so the mind will transform into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. Does that make sense? Makes sense, doesn't it? It's your mind, your mental consciousness, that will change and become a Buddha's mind. So it's that mind that you have, you just let go of what's extra. Misapprehension, afflictive emotions, those will be eliminated, and the end result is a pure mind of a Buddha. The residues, whatever is left, imprints, once you've removed all that, so it's basically saying, right now, your water, your mind is like a river that's full of mud and lots of stuff that's extra. But the water is still there. The clear nature of the water is there, except it's muddy. So when you remove the mud and all the dirt, that would be the mind of a Buddha. That's the analogy they use. Okay. So, that being the case, therefore, since that is the enlightened state, therefore we talk of the mind itself as Buddha nature. But we also say the emptiness, the fact that your mind doesn't exist inherently, that is your Buddha nature. The fact that your mind, so the lack of inherent existence of your mental consciousness, that is also your Buddha nature, the two Buddha natures, the mind itself and its emptiness. So why is that? Come on, I got nothing to do with my own emptiness. I did not do anything about it. It's always been empty, right? So how could that be Buddha nature? Well, yes, keep going.
Because the other one cannot become a Buddha.
Yes, it's that characteristic of your mind, which is also Buddha nature, that because your mind lacks inherent existence, it can be transformed. That is the reason why it can be transformed. So without lack of inherent existence, you would never become a Buddha. If your mind existed independently, intrinsically, in and of itself, it couldn't be affected by anything else, because it's independent, couldn't be dependent on other factors to change. Therefore, it couldn't change And if it doesn't change, it'll always be the same mind. It could never become the mind of a Buddha. Okay, that's the logic behind it. All right. Now we take it towards the mind of a Buddha. The mind of a Buddha, okay, that is definitely something we rely on. Omniscient mind of a Buddha. But the emptiness of that omniscient mind is also seen as a quality of the Buddha. How? How is that a quality of the Buddha? That the Buddha didn't do anything about that.
It's different from the emptiness of an ordinary mind.
It's different from the emptiness of an ordinary mind because the basis is a Buddha's mind. And what does the emptiness enable that mind? What makes it possible for that mind? Is that mind static and frozen? No. It can teach. It can interact. As in, like, the Buddha's mind is the thing that is, it's changing. It's not changing into something better or worse, but changing nonetheless. So changing means it become a cause. It's because the Buddha's mind that teachings take place, right? And those teachings affect us. So the Buddha's mind is the cause for the Buddha's teachings, and the teachings are that which affects us. So if the Buddha's mind lacked inherent existence, it couldn't give rise, if the Buddha's mind existed inherently, it couldn't act as a cause for the Buddha's teachings, which in turn guide us towards changing our own mind, which is only possible because our own mind lacks inherent existence. Am I making sense? So it's a quality of the Buddha's mind, the fact that it affects, that it can create the result of teachings. Okay? Effectively teaching us exactly what we need. In that moment when we encounter the Buddha, when we meet the Buddha will teach us exactly according to our karma, our predisposition, everything. That is only possible because the Buddha has this incredible mind which lacks inherent existence, which can give rise to those teachings according to our predisposition, etc., and therefore affect us. That's why it's a quality. Yeah.
So why say don't mention the emptiness of the Buddha's body?
Because the Buddha's body is not responsible. The Buddha's body does not make the Buddha. Who the Buddha is mainly dependent on his mind.
But without the existence of...
What does the Buddha's consciousness know when it teaches you? What you need. Knows exactly. The body doesn't know anything. The body's a body.
He appears with the body. He needs the body to teach you.
He needs the body to teach me, but the body is not that which teaches me most effectively. Right? The body is not what teaches me most effectively. It's because of the unique mind. We're striving towards omniscience. Why? Because once I'm omniscient, I know exactly what to say to you in each moment. Right? If I just had a little bit insight, not even omniscience. Look, we want to help people. How often do we find ourselves in a situation, I really want to help this person. And if I just said the right thing, I could put them at ease. And often we don't know what the right thing is, and we walk away and we're thinking, oh, I hope I didn't make it worse. Right? Forget about making things better. We're concerned about making it worse, but it's because we don't know what the person needs in that moment. So from that experience, you can come to understand how important it is to know exactly to say the right thing. We all have that wish in our mind to make other people happy, unless we don't like them. But that's just because we have this misperception of reality, right? If it didn't have that, who wouldn't want to get that pill that when you walk into a room, everyone feels happy? Let's say there was this enlightenment pill. You take it, you walk into the dining room, there are like 50 people in there. The moment you walk in there, their problems are gone. Wow, wouldn't that be easy? You get dinner and you would make everyone happy, right? So that's really a Buddha's ability. It's not necessary. It could be that they walk into a room, and that's because of the prayer they made, that if some person has the karma in that moment, they have the ability to bring peace of mind to that person. But only in a limited way, because you still need to teach them. So teaching them is the most effective way. That is like being the sun. Whether we take in the sun or not, that's up to us. But from the side of the Buddha, that's all they've done. They've done the greatest they could do. And that's because of his or her mind, not because of his or her body. Does that make sense? That's an important. So that's why we say the emptiness of the mind, the Buddha, is just as important as the mind, because since it doesn't exist inherently, it can therefore give rise to, that is, affect other things. If it existed inherently, it would just be that independent thing that could never in any way give rise to anything. It would just be this independent entity, couldn't give rise to teachings, couldn't give rise to turning the wheel of Dharma. That's why the emptiness is a quality. Does that make sense?
But why it says here that it's permanent?
Exactly.
Okay, that's your question.
And then,
Is the emptiness...
can I ask if the emptiness is permanent, the mind that is empty is impermanent?
Is the lack of inherent existence permanent or not? Permanent. Why is it permanent? It doesn't change moment by moment. It's just an absence of inherent existence. Permanent means non-static. No, static. Permanent means static.
So how can it teach?
It doesn't teach. The mind teaches. The mind gives rise to teaching. But only because there's a permanent state of emptiness. There's a permanent, non-changing absence of inherent existence that exists as a quality of a mind which is impermanent and therefore creates teachings. Does that make sense? I'll say it again. There is this quality of not existing inherently. I mean, it's kind of like saying the Buddha's mind is not this stick. The Buddha's mind lacks being this stick. Okay? That's true. The Buddha's mind is not this stick. The absence of the Buddha's mind to be this stick is also permanent. It's just an absence. Okay? But we don't perceive anything to be the stick. We don't have that problem. We mistakenly perceive everything to exist inherently. Everything to exist independently. Everything to have its own nature, able to define itself as this, that, and the other. That's what we believe. That's what our mind holds on to. So, to stress the fact that if phenomena existed in that way, nothing would be possible. It's totally ludicrous. It's absurd to believe that. We couldn't change. We couldn't become Buddhas. Buddhas couldn't teach us. So the fact that there's this non-changing quality, which is basically the absence of inherent existence. That's a quality. The absence of inherent existence is a characteristic that my mind has and a Buddha's mind has. That is a non-changing characteristic. It is a static characteristic. Not talking about eternal, internal, eternal, non-eternal. Don't think permanent and impermanent means eternal or non-eternal. It doesn't mean that. It means changing moment by moment, that's impermanent. Not changing moment by moment means permanent. Now it's just an absence. That is not like one moment of absence gives rise to the next moment of absence. It's just an absence. It's not a dynamic thing with one moment giving rise to the next. But that absence of something we just imagined that's never been there, that absence being static enables the Buddha's mind to teach, which is the way we can attain enlightenment. That's why it's so important. And that's unconditioned because it's permanent. Does that make sense? Okay.
Can you phrase it like the emptiness of the mind is permanent, but the mind is
Impermanent.
The emptiness of the mind is permanent, but the mind which is empty is impermanent?
Very good. The mind, the emptiness of the mind is permanent, but that which is empty, the mind itself is impermanent. Yes.
Okay, and that's why it can teach.
Pardon?
That's why it can teach.
That's why it's what?
It can teach.
Yes. No, the mind doesn't teach, but it gives rise to the teachings. Alright, so therefore the first quality is the quality of the unconditioned. Here unconditioned is just giving us a hint. Here conditioned, there are many things that are unconditioned, many things that are permanent, but here specifically it refers to the emptiness of the mind, that the lack of inherent existence of the Buddha's mind, that the Buddha has a mind by implication, but that it lacks inherent existence. So that's not a quality the Buddha attained as such, but of course the Buddha's mind, that's what the Buddha attained. Okay? So therefore it's a quality. It's unconditioned because it's permanent. It's one of the two types of the nature body or svabhavakaya of a Buddha. The second type of the nature body is the nature body that is free of adventitious defilements, which will be explained below. We have 5 minutes, thank you. Can you remind me after 4 minutes? Because I get carried away. Please note that the two nature bodies or svabhavakaya of a Buddha are explained in the context of explaining the 4 kayas of a Buddha. Jnanakaya, as mentioned before, svabhavakaya, nature body, sambhogakaya, nirmanakaya. I explained all of them. Jnanakaya is the mind of the Buddha. Sambhogakaya is the body that only bodhisattvas see. That is the kind of most subtle emanation of a Buddha, like physical presentation of the Buddha. And then you have all the different emanations that all of us can perceive if we have pure enough karma to perceive the Buddha. I mean, we can all perceive them, we just don't perceive them as a Buddha. Okay? So, and then we've added the svabhavakaya, this nature body. The nature body, svabhavakaya, which includes the lack of inherent existence of the Buddha's mind. That is not the Buddha's mind, and it's not the emanations of the Buddha, it's not the body of the Buddha, so therefore it's another category. Okay? If you hear this for the first time, it is difficult, it is complicated. But when you hear it for the second time, I promise it's easier.
Not much.
A little bit easier. Alright. Okay, so that's the first quality, the lack of inherent existence of the Buddha's mind. The second quality is the quality of the spontaneously accomplished nature body, which is just weird vocabulary. Don't get caught up in the vocabulary. That's just the word they use in Tibetan. It refers to the lack or the absence of any kind of obstructions on the mind of the Buddha. That's like the clean water now. The absence of obstructions. The Buddha has nothing left to remove, right? So not only does the Buddha's mind lack inherent existence, we already heard that, naturally, which makes it possible for the Buddha to teach us. But here it's looking at the mind itself. The mind itself is so special because all the extra balagan, it's gone. Right? All the extra, that keeps the Buddha from being most effective, that's gone. The Buddha has eliminated cognitive, afflictive, and cognitive obscurations. All these obstructions are gone. So the absence of those, that's a remission. Permanent remission. Cancer here is all the obscurations, and that is gone. That is gone here, and now you're in non-changing, irrevocable. What is irrevocable? Irrevocable in Hebrew? Cannot be reversed. Take it in? Okay, that's the word. Okay, that's the kind of, yeah. All right, that's those 2 words.
Complete remission.
Pardon?
Complete remission.
Complete remission. Remission forever. Complete means it's totally, the cancer is totally gone and it can never come back. So totally obstructions. So those are 2 absences. The absence of inherent existence, that's already naturally there. And then there's the one that a Buddha has, through the meditations, achieved. The absence of those qualities. Does that make sense? Okay? All right, 24. Let's go. Let's go to have dinner. Let's not wait, and I'll meet you again at 7.